Nirupaya Namah Shivaya. Uh, uh, as a cautionary note, please spare me that my English is not so great. I'll try to give it my best. Yeah, this presentation is about spiritual science, the context of spirituality, science in the spirituality. So, the caption is what I know, I know. What I don't know, I don't know. As simple as that. That is what the science in spirituality talks about. Yeah, the agenda. The agenda of this presentation is to help readers to learn or relearn what exactly is authentic spirituality, to disrupt the current opinions on everything of the reader who made them so far in his or her life. Usually we go by many opinions, so just to disrupt those opinions. For instance, today if we learn about something, we make an opinion out of it, right? Just to get some understanding of the subject. If we really don't know about it, we may not have any opinion on that. So, in this context, our opinion is an opinion just to make our understanding of it. So, I want to disrupt them. I'll try to disrupt them of all the existing opinions of the reader so far he made in his life about everything. Create the confusion in reader's mind by bringing the spiritual context of his perspective to his perspective, which means, yeah, well, we all have an absolute confidence of about everything. In fact, everything about what's happening around our lives, be it anything, people go by just with absolute confidence. But there's a phrase from Sadhguru Jiggi Vasudev which says, and in my experience as well, I realized that confidence without clarity is a disaster, because you can pretend to be confident but today on something, but if you really don't have clarity within about that, whatever the subject you are trying to pretend confidence, either within you or facing the situations outside, it's always 50-50. It may work or it may not work. If it works, you think that your confidence made it work, but if it doesn't work, yeah, you will enroll to a disaster, you will subscribe to a disaster. So the idea is to bring some clarity so that our confidence will build on the footsteps of our clarity. Doesn't matter what degree we hold to it, the context of degree the context of clarity, it doesn't matter, it's always relative, but always confidence should be on the basis of the clarity, and of course it can never be otherwise. You cannot just go by confidence and expect the clarity. If the reader is started to confuse, then he already started progressing as a spiritual person. Yeah, because whatever that's happened in this planet so far in the annals of human history, everything was done as something a person is expecting to be doing some good to whatever. it doesn't matter how relative that goodness is, but so if I can bring confusion to the reader's mind in this context, if I mean to that matter, like confusion to on everything so far he learned in his life, to some extent I am successful in this presentation. If the reader can grasp the presentation with clarity, then reader is assumed to be already a spiritual person. Yeah, and the other points, like there are, yeah, of course this was an agenda, and there is no agenda of the following slides. When I while explaining this, what is life, I'm not touching in any material aspect of life. It's just that how we experientially, spiritually see the life. Different forms of life, significant difference between vegetation and other forms of life, why humans are unique compared to other mammals, explaining human mind. I will not touch anything in too depth, but I'll try to give some idea and leave the readers to contemplate themselves or research for themselves. What is an ego in spiritual context? What is an awareness and its relationship with consciousness? What is an intelligence and how it's different to intellect? What is spirituality in comparison with modern science? Emotion and energy as a tool to connect to divine, defining atheism and its connection to modern science. What is yoga and why it is important for human being. Yeah. So let's get into the presentation. Let's look into our lives. What is life? I mean, whenever the discussion of life comes between in the conversations, we assume the life is about how we are leading our social life. This life is has nothing to do with the definition of this context of life, has nothing to do with what is our social life, how about family, work, material gathering. It doesn't touch, discuss that part. In fact, it touches what is that something, that which something throbbing within everything, which is keeping us alive. So the fundamental framework that is governing every species that is being born in this existence. Within me there is life. That life which doesn't have a partiality between me and any other species in the planet. You can ignore for the time being our intellectual processes, our intellectual process and all, but the life within, it doesn't have any judgment between the species. It's the same in an amoeba, it's the same in a blade of grass, it's the same in the tree, it's the same in a bird, reptile, human beings, mammals, any other mammal. The life, when the life is throbbing, when it's beating within, we are alive. And if it is not, we are not. And I'm talking in an experiential point of view. It has nothing to do with the modern scientific study. Of course, to understand for ourselves, because mind works only with the understanding of any objective out there. So for our better understanding, for the mind's understanding ability, we try to we try to make some kind of opinion of from our understanding, and those opinions are very much relative. It could be a collective opinions, collective conscience, or individual opinion. But I'm not trying to put any opinion here. I'm only urging you, requesting you to look into it. Just look within yourselves whether the life within you is throbbing because you're able to think, or it's just because it's happening you're able to think. Before we continue to this slide, I want to go through another one image of Euripides. It says about this: question everything, learn something, answer nothing. What does that mean? In our experience, whatever we are experiencing in our lives since we are born, right from the blade of grass to this whole cosmos, with the existence around us, the social circus, everything which we didn't create. Look at the baby. The baby is being born, and then he tries to grasp his surroundings, the existence. Every way, in every speck of his uh, interaction with the existence around him, he tries to question in his own way, because the mind that is being, uh, the developing faculties of the mind, it needs to understand, right? Because it's a survival process. Without understanding of where he is, he cannot make it out of himself how to survive. So questioning everything is a fundamental aspect of any intelligence, and every species has their own ways of questioning. It need not to be in any specific language. Just like how an infant tries to, wonder about everything around him and try to make his own ways of, understanding. Every species does that, but that all happens from questioning everything and learn something. This learning, it has nothing to do with, what and how others needs to understand from you, or you don't need to give an opinion to anyone else. It's for your own, it's for my own, it's for everyone's, their own. Learn something, that learning could be a survival aspect, that learning could be beyond a survival aspect, but we learn something. And that learning may not be an absolute learning. It's always an incremental process, because this questioning never stops, because nothing was created by us, nothing we didn't bring it, but yet we are experiencing it, and will fade away. So this learning gives us different perspectives of this existence. And answer nothing. What you need to answer, and to whom do you need to answer? Because there is nothing to answer. Whatever you answer, our answers at, at max could be for our for our ability to be on this planet, and when we are faded away from this face of the planet, that whatever you learn could also go with you. But yeah, collective learning, given in a situation of collective understanding, could might create some knowledge for the future generations, but for us within what we have to answer to ourselves, there is nothing. It's nothing. So question everything, learn something, and answer nothing. And we all always tend to end up in question everything because we assume that questioning everything is questioning someone else, questioning someone else's work. But that's always pointing fingering at someone else outward. But the absolute questioning is when you turn the same finger inward towards you, and then you learn. And I'll try to cover what are the aspects when I touch the subject of human mind. What what is that we need to question? Yeah. So this life, we are experiencing our life, the beating, the functioning of our organs, the beating of our heart, the whatever the energy system and whatever the blood pumping. This is all happening because of the life that is being functioning within us. The moment the life moves out of this system, I'll refer it as a system rather than a body, but the reason is everything is a system. Every device, every unit of thing on this planet is, it could be a system. It can be called as a system, but sophistication between these different entities, different species it could vary. But as end of the day, everything is a system, biological machine. So the moment the life within our system, the moment it fades away, it moves out. This machine, this bio machine, it means nothing. The mind, the personality, the information, the so-called knowledge, the so-called discriminative abilities, the so-called human ego, everything falls down. What is that left? It's just a dead system, which is of nothing. At max, it could be a manure. It could become a manure to other forms of life to thrive. So this life, in this life's perspective, every species have the same, rights to this existence. But there are different species we have on this planet in the process of life cycle, right from aqua to this aqua life to human beings. There's a chain, the evolution chain, that only emphasizes the difference between species to species but never discriminates. And this emphasis will be stressed on areas of the evolutionary aspects of this machine from amoeba to human being, but will never but is but I'll never try to please mind that it's not about the discrimination between the species. It's only explaining the differences between one species to other species. So different forms of lives. So as we know from our observations, there are different lives that are sharing the same existence, right? This planet. So life is taking physical shape, is of many forms. So as I said, there is life within every living entity. That doesn't mean that life is not there beyond that living entity. The only reason, because we have this machine, this system, bio machine, we are experiencing that life within. That it doesn't mean the life is not outside of us. It's also there. But whatever the space, whatever this, beyond all these species, life forms, everywhere there is life. But the way how it functions is totally, subjected to the the different types of species and also the environment. So some being within human beings, the expression it could be different. Within some other living species, it could be different. And outside of any living form, there is also a life. That is what, you know making us to do these transactions of breathe. Otherwise we may fall dead in minutes. So whatever I breathe, whatever I inhale, someone is exhaling. Whatever else I exhale, someone is inhaling. And this transaction is always happening. The basic fundamental framework for this transaction is the life. And this life can also be called in different aspects, in a different ways. For example, it can also be referred as consciousness. It can also be referred as highest intelligence. It can also be referred as a divine. And this divine has been expressed in different opinions, but I'll try to touch that point in upcoming slides. But for now, let's stick here. So vegetation, bacteria, virus, worms, aqualife, aerial life, reptiles, mammals, and much evolved human being, and every species, it's life. Everything is called life, but they are forms of life. From life's perspective, as explained earlier, there is no difference or partiality for it to thrive within any life form. In any life form, it thrives in the same and absolutely same way. But how the machine, the bio machine, makes use of it, it is subjected to the evolution of that particular bio machine. So, as I said, the blade of grass, a tree, everything is also an expression of life. Life in its evolutionary process took different shapes, shape of vegetation and forests for us, to uh, to support other forms of life. The one which survives on oxygen and all. But the breath, let me not bring any scientific aspects into it. The breath, the inhale and exhale, the prana which we cannot survive if we can't have it for if we cannot have it for a few minutes, we cannot survive. This prana, this something that is we are inhaling and exhaling. Certain species need this process so that life can function within. This is a support for the machine, to live, for the life to thrive. It's not the otherwise. Life can move on anytime. And for example, a blade of grass or tree also has the same life within. However, the expression of it is limited to its physical mechanism. Within them, they generate the prana for us, and for us, the same life, it consumes it, and whatever we exhale, they consume. So this continuous feedback between the species by inclusiveness within, it tree in our backyard is already including us, but it always, you know, can be debatable how much we are including the tree within our life. So other life have much more evolved physical mechanism for life to express its intelligence. As I said a few minutes back, the way the how we are, how it is, how the life is evolved. So the expression is also expression of this intelligence. The life is also varies according to, for example, a small Nippo battery can hold certain amount of energy. At the same time, a substation can hold a different types of energy. It all depends upon the device's ability, right? But end of the day, both have the same energy. So if you can see, life is also can be referred as the same energy, as consciousness, as intelligence, as divine, as I said earlier. However, still everything is grown from within as life and without as consciousness or energy. So within, when the same, that oneness, when it is encapsulated within a biomachine, then it is referred as life. But when it is without the machine, biomachine, it could be a blade of grass, it could be a tree, it could be anything, it could be human being, it could be any mammal. Without a biomachine, it is referred as consciousness. Of course, within a machine, it could also be referred as energy system, but that energy is like, you know, mm, taking a different isomorphic, I mean, isomorphic shapes. I mean, because it's all subjective. How you touch yourselves within, then in that way it will be expressed for us. So it could be called as energy, it could be called as life, it could be called as consciousness, it could be called as divine. So different names, but the same one thing. Human beings with us, other life. So as I said, like how there's a difference between a vegetation to other lives in terms of biomechanism. The significant aspect of human being is human beings are highest peak of evolution they are in terms of, you know uh, in terms of biological evolution. Other life such as aqua, aerial, reptile and other mammals are having a limited cerebral capabilities compared to human beings. So the most highest difference that can vary a human being to any other life is the ability to for the human being to think, the intellectual ability. Of course, certain animals may have that ability, but negligible. They are negligible. Maybe I'm not really sure whether they can think or not, but they possess certain kind of intellectual abilities. Given in this instance, for example, a crow, ravens, they possess certain kind of intellectual abilities, and cows. So, but human being, the significant difference between any other animals, uh, aerial species, compared to them, human beings' intellectual ability is far most evolved, and in terms of cerebral capabilities. And the biggest factor that evolved in the cerebral capability is the sense of awareness, the faculty that can hold the sense of awareness, you know calling myself as I. This is the biggest influence on the human beings species compared to any other man, which put human being in a far more, much better position in the evolutionary scale. Otherwise, every other human being is also more animal. So these cerebral capacities are influenced by many factors like evolved intellectual faculty in human beings compared to other mammals, aqua, aerial and reptiles. Human being cerebral faculty comprises a sense of awareness, as I mentioned. So this sense of awareness is helping human being to express his individual experience, and it could also happen in different lives, the sense of experience, but there is no expression to it in the form of explanation. But that expression, there could be certain ways of expression, but that is subjected to species communication, uh, uh, conversation, communication between species, within the species, but not between the species. But here we human being has the ability to understand different species, not only himself but also others, because of this intellectual ability, observing, paying attention. These are the factors that help a human being using his sense of awareness to understand everything around him. So, as I said, like for a human being, because of this intellectual evolution in his cerebral activity, the mind, that's a major factor, right, for us to express ourselves, like to differentiate between two human beings. What is that actually the difference between two human beings? Both are having the same body, both are, you know, same in every aspect, of course, when keeping aside how they look, you know, but otherwise both are biomachines, right? But what is the difference that is making between two people? It's the mind, right? The mind, the personality. I calling myself as me and you calling yourself as you. What is the difference between you, your personality and my personality? If we can just keep it aside, you and me are same. We were born as the same, we were grown up as the same, but just because we were grown up in a different social context, we are our personalities are different. Otherwise, and also there are other factors, karmic factors, but otherwise we both are same in existential point of view. So mind is a tool that in general rely on our five sensory organs, yeah, mouth, ear, eye, nose and skin. Mouth for the taste, ear for listening abilities, eye for visual apparatus, nose for smelling abilities and skin for touch. These are the five organs, sensory organs. Yeah, maybe you can call, maybe not be sense organ, but five sensory uh, inputting abilities for human machine. These are the five tools, for five things that mind relies on to gather the information. However, there is also the sixth sense, which is the awareness of human being, awareness for the human being. It acts as a mask for the mind to present itself. So the awareness is part of mind and mind is part of awareness. There is a distance, yet they both act as one. We'll touch that point in upcoming slides. But yeah, in general, for any human being, there is no difference between what is self and what is mind, because they both, there is a thin layer that can differentiate both. But if we can't see that, till the moment you see that thin layer, you experience that thin layer, you don't see the difference. You think that both mind is self is same, because personality, everyone, any, I mean, we all recognizes each other through our personalities, right? So For now, let's say they both are same. Mind gathers the data through five senses for its reference and awareness along with the mind when it is in mind's authority. So uses its three faculties: intellect, identity, and memory. And the whole collection of this is a personality. What it means is mind uses its faculties. Mind gathers the data from the existence, from the society, from the existence surrounded by it, using its five senses. And when mind is controlling the awareness, uh, it acts as an authority using its faculties, intellect, identity, and memory. And this whole authoritative process of mind is one's personality. That is why everyone referring to others to their mind, the personality. Without the gathering, mind cannot express itself, because if one can possess this ability to shut down his senses, one's senses, or mind, once it goes through all the data, and if one can distance the whole data that is being captured, mind stops. Just mind will keep silence. Mind will come into silence state. But by default, mind always try to express itself as a personality using the data. I mean, the data could be the brought up, the data could be the exposure, the data could be whatever we've been exposed in the whole life so far. That it's all, everything it's called data. It doesn't matter this or that. Everything since we are born to this day, everything that we we know what we think, what we know, what we think we know. Everything, that's data. Even the whatever I am expressing right now, I am using the data, but trying to put it in my experiential perspective. See, because the data it's the data is data, but how you make use of data is a different use case, right? Different thing, right? So I'm trying to make use my data in a different perspective, to give a different perspective. I'm just trying to mine the data in a different way to give a different perspective. Mind needs a format to store the data when it is in authority, which is an opinion. So how, as we discussed earlier, how mind captures the data. See, you cannot to store an image from its raw format, to process it, any tool will try to convert the raw content of the image to some format, right? The movie, for us, a recording could be a raw format, but for us to run to play it in some tool, some player, you need to convert it to particular format. So mind does this. The observation, the attention ability of human mechanism captures the data through its five senses for the mind, and for the mind to understand the observation, understand whatever that's being gathered, it tries to make an opinion, certain kind of format. But this opinion or format is always subjected to the you know the awareness of the gathered information. If the awareness is, I mean, uh, if the observation is little, then the opinion could be in a vary to different certain degree. If the observation is more much in detail, the more you observe, the more you obtain the details of the captured entity, the better the opinion, right? So how much we can capture it about the same thing, how deep we can capture it, it all subjected to our attentive abilities. But for the mind to understand in the scale of this observing abilities, attentive abilities of human being, the, for the mind to understand, for every different levels of observing abilities, still it tries to you know format it as an opinion. So that's how mind tries to store it within it as a memory. These opinions are primarily classified as likes. So as I said, like, capturing data and making opinion is one way, but using an emotional X factor, because the gathering could be in a different forms, various forms, in various forms that mind can capture the data. It could be a relationship understanding, it could be interaction with something, it could be just inanimated object study, anything. But I mean, it could be a relationship between two people, anything is captured as an opinion. But certain opinions, when it is interacting with other forms of life, especially inanimated animated you know mm, objects like uh, human beings or other species, the opinion is also mixed with certain emotion. And these opinions and emotions and the assumptions and these are all classified primarily into likes and dislikes of a person. And the base of these likes, for example, if you leave a toddler for himself, he may attract to something and he may not attract to something else. For him, how he is making that classification, that categorization, is it depends upon something, karmic imprint. But let's not go in depth in that, but let's settle in this categorization of likes and dislikes. These likes and dislikes have another layer of dependency called tendencies, swarupas. These tendencies are the source, root cause, root of all the likes and dislikes one possesses. And these are kind of two buckets for a personality. So everything that is getting into the mind will be categorized as a like and a dislike. And these likes and dislikes are further classified into you know the person's personality, based upon what he likes. He has a certain personality, personality expression. What he doesn't like, he has a certain personality expression. And this is too complex to delve in right now, too complex subject to delve in right now, because different human beings behave in different ways, subjected to different situations they are in, uh, and the state of their mind they are in, and the control of the mind they are in. And these likes and dislikes can will be expressed in a different degree. For example, a sane person could express the same and likes and dislikes in one way, and an insane person could do. A lunatic could express in a different way, an unstable person could express in a different way, an uncontrolled person, emotionally uncontrolled person, could express in a different way. So that's all subjected to different factors, which I don't want to delve right now into it. But the fundamental, if you see, the fundamental base for any personality is a like and dislike, which is also have an X factor of expected dependency like emotions also triggers certain kind of likes and dislikes. So ego. So as I mentioned earlier, the intellect, identity and memory. So the mind's major faculties, important faculties, three important faculties which if we can look at. The intellect defines our sharpness of addressing something, and the identity refers what we identify with. We may identify as an individual self. We may identify as a family person, as a father, as a mother, as a daughter, as a son, as a you know some relation we can identify with, and we can also identify with our community, with our language, and these identities in a certain conscious life we can see them. What is our identity? But there could be many different identities. People identifies to simple objects. I mean, if you may notice, some people won't like others to touch their things, be it a glass, be it a plate, or be it something. They don't like someone to sleep on their bed, not to use their bed, not to use their blanket. This is all because they have a strong identity, and the intellect, that is a tool for the identity. The mind that holds certain identity will use the intellect as its tool to express its identity. And that the whole functionality of intellect is to dissect, to categorize, to because that is how it learns about the things. And the whole nonsense that's happening in the current world right now is because different level of these different levels of identity. And every capture of data, there will be some kind of storage mechanism in the mind, which is called memory, which is a memory, right? Like which stores all our memories in certain area, which can refer it as a whole memory. So these three faculties, how different identities a person is expressing, makes him such a very varied person, like such a person who is having such a variations, but essentially the personality is a collection of these three. And ego, so when mind is not awakened, it assumes its gathering is everything. As I said, like the mind, if it is controlling the awareness, so the self awareness, it assumes that it is everything. And that's how, if you see people, when you're trying to explain something, although the explanation is to the details, still other person may not able to see it, get it what we are trying to express it. The reason is, the mind, if it is totally consumed by certain opinion, certain likes and dislike of certain subject, it will not see it, it cannot see it, because it assumes the state of the likes and dislikes, uh, you know identification of like and dislike itself as it is. The mind itself as it is assumes particular like as itself. So it cannot see the distance, it cannot see the gap, as it is something, it is captured, it is something, it is having as a category, but itself is totally boxed within that. So that mind is called unawakened mind. And there's a fantastic series from Awaken the World film. I mean, there's a YouTube channel which I will give a if he goes and see YouTube and do awaken the world film, so yeah, awaken the world film, this they have some videos. There's a thing called awakening the mind. If you watch it, you'll get it what exactly. And this he's a wonderful guy. His name is Daniel Schmidt. He's from Canada, and he made a fantastic series of samadhi in as a trilogy. You just have to watch it, like know thyself, and then you know. And there is a part two, which is called, yeah. You can go through it. Go to this channel later, but so yeah. When mind is not awakened, it assumes it's gathering as everything. In this process, identity it is holding will be acting as authority, which manifests itself as an ego. So, such an identity, if a mind is identified with that certain thing, certain mm, mm, then if the mind is not awakened, the mind itself assumes whatever the identity it holds as itself. In that process, it will try to defend its identity. If some expression or opinion is coming from other side, questioning it, or or especially in the questioning format, or maybe if it could be just ridiculing it, whatever that happens, this the mind will try to defend it, because the whole process of mind identifying to certain thing and not realizing its identity, it whole thing, it's the process is called an ego. So this ego, it could be also in various levels. It has various degrees, in the scale, like how much it is attacked, how much it is refuted. uh, the reaction of this ego is subjected to these factors. The awakened mind realizes the importance of self. But when the mind is awakened, then, as I mentioned in the previous slide, some slides back, there's a gap, thin layer of gap between the mind and the self, right? But when the mind is awakened, then it will realize the importance of self. And from that moment, this can also happen by accident or with the help of yogic methods. But once that happens, then the mind, when you experience something, then you can see it, like it can only be expressed for a person who can, for himself, like when you really experience it, then your mind will not be same, your life will not be same. Why they say that certain experiences will transform your life is like the mind will go through this kind of transformation in a very short period of time. It could be a second, it could be a moment, it could be overnight, it could be anything. But once that happens, the mind will never go back to that same state, because it experiences that the self, the distance between what is it and what exactly that is there. And then initially, it just it's a whole big confusion, chaos for the mind, because the whole information, the base for it will everything sounds like meaningless for some time being, because in the process of this self realization, for time being, person just, he may look stupid, he may look dumb, he may look like that is the time people will shut off themselves from the social activity. But this is what is happening. The mind is awakened, and then it realizes the importance of self, and it knows the limitations of itself, and it knows all the stupidity it been through, like all this lifetime. So the contemplation of itself, going through experience of and recollecting the whole experiences so far in its life. I mean, when I say eat, it could be a person, or it could be him or her, but and talking in terms of mind. So this realization will uh, numb down the mind for time being till it gives back the control to the self, because initially it will try to not release the control because of kind of dopamine it has, having that control and leading the person. But once that happens, it will realize that, yeah, it is not the one should be the superiority, but then giving back the control will take some time. So in that transformation, the person may not be socially active, but this is what it happens. So this can and yeah, this can happen by an accident or with help of yogic methods, as I mentioned. Like when self is in authority, human being turns spiritual. So when self, I mean, the process of self gaining the authority, or self is in control as an authority, the whole thing is like spiritual transformation, or becoming a spiritual person, or a spiritual person. Till then, mind assumes material aspect of life is everything. So any identity that is coming as an expression from the mind till that point act makes the mind behaves as it is behaving. A person acting as an atheist, a person acting as rationalist, a person acting as something else, which is acting as everything because of the gathering. If the gathering is because mind only works based on because of gathering, right? Like relying on the gathered information, right? So this gathering, uh, till the mind assumes till that moment, till that time, like mind assumes material aspect of life is everything, but that will stop changing. The person will start looking in a different perspectives from there onwards. And yeah, self will help mind to introspect its gathering and always maintains distance. Always try to maintain the distance to what it gathers. So before the awakening, mind, whatever the gathering, mind tries to own it as it knows, as it think it knows. I mean, as it knows, but the difference is it think it knows, but before awakens, it assumes that it knows. But the reality is only there. It only thinks it knows. So once the awakening happens, self will help mind to introspect. So it will not let the mind to again go for an identity, go for identification, go for owning of whatever the gathering it is done. So the distance will be there always, and depends upon how the mind is awakened. Uh, some people may fall back again back into this giving back to the mind, control to the mind, because that it all depends on the factor of how the awakening happens. If it is powerful awakening, yeah, it will never go back. But if it is through some kind of inspiration, or if it is through from uh, base of again the gathering by reading or learning about some others, listening to some podcasts. If it is not experiential, probably again it may fall back. But if it is really self experiential coming from within, then yeah, the self will help mind never to go back to its old state. Mind may become an ugly master in the influence of ego, whereas it can be a fantastic tool for the self. So if mind is in control, because it works, it can only express with the different identities it holds to, and these identities, when refuted with the different perspectives from others, This mind can turn ugly, and it can go to any extent to defend for itself, and we may notice it in everyday walks of our life, different walks of our life in every day. How people behave, because it all happening from the mind. Uh, but if a mind is in control of self, if self is the authority, yeah, it will only respond. It will never react, because if there is only situation it need, it will respond to it. And the response of the self is always in inclusive nature. It will try to help the other self to realize its, other mind to realize, to awaken. But it depends on the other person's state of mind also. That's a factor, huge factor to be considered. So awareness and consciousness. When self is the authority, it expresses itself as awareness in the individual and an inward quality. So awareness, it's always how you are aware within yourself about everything. So how much you are aware, the quality of life you are leading will be, subjected to that degree. And it's an inward quality. So when awareness and the biggest difference between attention and an awareness is being attentive to your surroundings. Attention is like being alert, like the biggest difference between awareness and alerting is alert process is like awareness is an inward quality, you being aware of yours, of everything around you, or also about yourself. So it's like a kind of tunneling yourself within you. But alerting is like outward ability, alerting about yourself, the situations, the the survival aspect, the social faculty, the social situations, and everything about outside. But awareness is always inward quality. Awareness, one work in progress, it evolves into consciousness. So awareness is an individual, and the more you are aware, the more you conscious about your life, and the how you are leading your life. So awareness is a kind of key to becoming a conscious life. So consciousness is always there. It's always, but to reach to the state of that life, the conscious life, and this consciousness also is like a forever evolving. There is no such thing as like the particular one peak, and uh, uh, I mean consciousness is absolute, but a realization through through awareness, being aware of everything, of about anything. So this realization through self awareness will help you to that con you know to reach that consciousness. But whatever that you are aware through your self realization of anything, it's all called conscious, leading a conscious life for others to understand. But when others are observing you, yourself, you yourself, it all looks like leading a conscious expression of life. But the tool that is in work in process is like using your awareness by realizing and walking towards the consciousness. And uh, although people try to point it as individual consciousness and absolute consciousness, but this individual consciousness is the way of walking towards the absolute consciousness. There is only one consciousness, and every individual has a different state of awareness, different states of realization, and states of realization and awareness makes their life as a conscious life, but it's not. It is always forever walking towards the absolute consciousness. It's a forever process. The incoming data through mind has a potential to absorb the self by boxing it in the opinions. So till the mind is awakened, that realizing there is a self within, that means till that moment, the mind relying on its sensory data, because the sensory data are the sources for all the pleasures that mind can experience, mind can go through. This data, the mind boxes the whole self within it, and the lock for the box is an opinion. So the self is boxed by the mind uh, for not to express itself, because there is a continuous influx of sensory data, and the lock for that box is an opinion. Unless that opinion shatters and the box breaks out, and self come out, the mind cannot see what it is. But unfortunately, mind never knows that when it is uh, boxed the self within the opinion. So, however, if one is disciplined, either through continuous introspect, it can be avoided by being every moment, by being aware every moment. So, as I said, like if the mind is awakened, the future after the awakening happens, the gathering is still will be there through the mind, but at max the self will taken care. But I mean the self will be taken care, but the taking care will be happening in the process of awareness. But if one loses for a moment of being aware, there could be a chance that the newly incoming data could push the mind to make a new opinion, and then falling itself back into the opinion. So, but by being aware, you can avoid it. We can avoid it, and it's a kind of choice one can have. Uh, because you need to train the mind for yourself, right, for some time. So you have to be that, you have to make a pattern. But once it becomes the uh, living reality for the mind, then obviously opinion making will be stopped. The more the human being is aware, the more he is conscious about his or her life happening. So it's all about. So uh, in my experience, what I what I understood is, like, what I realized is life is a kind of a fabric, just like a spider fabric, a cloth fabric. Everything is connected. The life, our since we are born, the events that are happening in our life has a kind of mm, has a kind of uh, a route to whatever that is going to happen in the future. But if you wanted to see the pattern, just observe your life since you come into being aware of yourself, like the realization of yourself, the identity of I, the assumption of I, since you're 4 5 years old to this day, and whatever how much you are remembered, just pay attention to those events that happened in your life. Every single event in your life has a kind of connection. It may not be mentally contemplated, because the life that is thriving within has nowhere any relation to the mind that is happening, the mind that is capturing the data. Because in your mm, uh, mental realm, you may be in an impression that life is happening in some way, because the life in the mind is about how you are leading your society in the social life, family life, work life, professional life, and that is what the mind it thinks of what life is. But existentially, life is happening in a certain way because of the fabric it is. So when you distance your mind, distance yourself to your mind, and then you can see the events that happened. Then if you notice the events that happened in your life, obviously there is a connection for every single event. Why certain thing happened in your, be it a good situation or a bad situation. The reason, because you may be losing someone in your life, and existentially that means that that particular person is done. That particular person is done for supporting your future, the continuation of your future. That's the reason with the existence. Mentally, you may still hang on to that person with all kind of attachments and emotions, kind of memories. But existentially, the person's life is done for in your life. Uh, that's the reason why they're gone. And also certain things that may look like a possibilities for you, but you may not see them at that time because of your different mental state. But when you look back and see, okay, that could be such a situation I missed out. I didn't see it could be a major possibility, life turning event for me, both financially or socially, or could be anything. But you may didn't see it because of the mental state. But these events, that all, and it is for everyone, it's the same. But unfortunately, these things cannot be seen because of rigid opinions we have, a rigid state of mind we have on everything. We may never see them. And intellect versus intelligence. So essentially, intellect is a faculty of a mind that it uses on the data it gathers to understand its character for making a judgment. That's how, right? Like how quick your intellectual process makes you that, maybe may make people call you that a genius, intellectual genius or something, so essentially the more sharp your mind, your intellect, makes you, thrive in a society, uh, compared to others. So but intelligence is beyond mind's realm, which is governed by the self. So intellect is a mind's faculty. If you want to kind of make a kind of a differentiation, intellect is a mind's faculty, but intelligence is a self's faculty. Because the self the self itself called itself as an intelligence, and also it can express itself as an intelligence. So intelligence have different names: consciousness, primordial energy, life that is within and without, divine, liberation. So the liberation here in this context is like, getting distance yourself from all the material aspects which is controlling you. So when you are in that state, obviously intelligence will be with you. So the peak of intelligence can be touched by human being with devotion. So yeah, this is also one aspect, that devotion is the shortest form for anyone. In the annals of human history, why devotion has made a major role in the arts and arts and engineering is because uh, devotion you know uh, can what to say can uh, help anyone to express their intelligence. In the devotion, you just totally involve, and our creativity is always directly dependent on the involvement we have. So devotion is a shortcut because devotion uses your emotion as a fuel. So when emotion is in a controlled way, and if you are expressing it in the entity on you want, the involvement is like to next level. In that in that state, human beings are like do wonders. For example, Ramanujan, eccentric mathematical genius. It could be Newton, physics, any marvel that happened in the annals of human history uh, has devotion has certain role in some people's life. But yeah, but also be it an entity or a very expression of human being life in all walks of life, this devotion could be on the work you are doing as well. Like how much involvement you are devoted to what you are doing. Devotion need not to be on some religious figure. An enlightenment, you know, enlightenment can also be a possibility for a person to touch the peak of intelligence, and self-enquiry can also lead you to, because self-enquiry, it's a process of continuous inquiry till you reach that root cause, the common one root for everything that is making your life the way it is. When you touch it, you're there. So when when you're in that state, you have answers for everything, and also you can see that there are no answers, there are no questions, there is nothing, there is everything. It is everything here. So it's like you have answers for everything. At the same time, there is nothing. There is no need of any answer. I mean, there is no question, there is no answer, there is nothing. It's all like emptiness. So if you want something, you can pick it from that. If you don't want it, you don't. There will be nothing. That's the reason why realized beings can answer any kind of question, because it's very simple. They are in a, they always they're always in a place where it is so simple. So for us, because our mind complicates our lives. Otherwise, it's very simple. They're always in the unknown. They're always in the state of ignorance. They're always there. From that ignorance, they will see everything without any opinion, without any bias, without any likes, without any aversions, without any compulsions. They will see to the subject as it is. The reason why today we cannot find an answer for something is because, not because the question is complicated or subject is complex, just because we are already closed in a certain area, certain dimensions, uh, with all kind of assumptions and opinions, and we just close those doors. And using that, if you approach if you approach to learn something, or it's a complex, it becomes everything is a complex. But if you are really open, I mean, that means that if you are fully involved, and if you really and fully willing, that means that you will you will question every single thing in your learning process. You don't just stop at something else, or you just don't take anything for granted. The learning is like a continuous, I mean, the questioning is like a continuous till you understand everything in all dimensions. Either that way you can learn anything from outside, which is a complete learning, or you keep yourself untouched to anything, any kind of opinion, just ignorant, just in the state of ignorant. And then you approach, and then you look into that question. Obviously you have an answer. But for others, when they listen to those answers, it's like spellbounding, because they never see it. Just because the particular person is intelligently speaking, it's not because the particular person intelligently speaking. He just rooted himself in the ignorance, looking into the question just the way it is. He don't have answers for everything. He may not have all the memory in the cosmos. Yet he have answers to every question, because approach, the only factor that varies from a normal person to a realized person, is the approach towards the question. And that approach pulls out the answer from nothing. So the process of approaching intelligence is through seeking. So yeah, the seeking is also a continuous process. Either it's with towards yourself, or addressing something, or observing something, or paying attention to something, anything, everything is is uh, is through seeking. Seeking will never settle with conclusions or opinions. So even though through your seeking process, even though if you captured something, still you don't settle with that. I mean, the captured information, the, the captured data may be useful for this particular situation, and that doesn't make it to conclude there. Still, the seeker is open to question whatever that he captured and made use to certain situation, and be done with it. Still he will questions from going further on the same thing. Unfortunately, today's situation is, if you if you learn something, and that learning may help you to answer certain things, that's it. You end up there, assuming that whatever particular learning is fit for your case, and that's it. You make an opinion that yeah, this is only fit for this, and you don't try to see different dimensions on the same thing. But if you can see different perspectives of certain thing being used to solve something, also could be useful in a different way. For example, mercury. Scientifically, mercury has certain state, and always in a liquid state, and it's a very harmful thing, blah blah blah, because science stopped after understanding its potential harm, uh, and its limited use cases. But in Indian culture, the same mercury is being used to different activities as well, other than whatever that is being used, and it also has a solid state. It can also be converted to solid state. So which means that yogis not only settled uh, the usage of mercury to such a limit, they also extended it. They also tried to look in a different aspect on what it can make, how it can be useful in a different ways. So this happens only if your seeking is always there. If you don't stop your seeking, if you are stopped, we are done with certain opinion, and our our intelligence also stops performing its the best possible way. The one who is completely liberated from mind's influence can attain a liberation. So the I mean when one can actually completely distance himself totally forever to his mind, that means that the whole existential gathering, the social gathering, and everything that is being within the mind, he is already distanced. So when that means that those things that are in the mind will never influence this person. That person is called a liberated person. So spirituality versus modern science. Modern science is always rooted itself in the ignorance and uncertainty. That's how, right? I mean, if you look into the process of knowing the unknown in physical dimension, it captures the use cases which enhances our survival aspect in this existence. If you see, if you just see any scientific paper, if you see, if you look at how you learn something, in our school, everything starts from, let us assume. Even a scientific paper tries to bring some, tries to propose this, tries to propose some theory, some method, and then tries to fit it in some mathematical model, and then they implement it, that model based on certain metrics, and then they draw results, and they try to see whether that can fit to original idea of proposal. The results can help them to do something out of the original proposal, but everything starts from assumption. So there is something, there is this thing, there is the thing, and they're assuming something, and they're creating, and that scientific study could be successful or failure. That's a that's a relative thing. But there is a thing, and we don't know the thing, and they propose something out of the thing, and they try to prove that something, and if it is successful, that something can be maybe useful for the human, you know a life's enhancement. But no, still to till this date, science never says that it knows the thing. It always proposes something from the thing. So the thing is always uncertain. It's always, you can extract n number of things from the same thing, from the same that thing. You can, but that doesn't mean that that thing is limited to whatever the proposals, whatever the extractions. So it captures the use cases which enhances our survival aspects in this existence. Modern science is a process that proposes idea by following mathematical models and implement them to generate facts and evidences for community judgment, for validation. However, its basic ingredient is a proposal or an assumption, but never defines something as it is. The proposed idea may be technological possibility, which may enhance our lifestyle, but it's just one means of extraction from what it is there existentially. Science uses the rational approach by means of logical application in course of its study. The logic help others in general to reproduce the facts by repetitive experimenting and following the same logic. Spirituality and modern science are not different in this aspect of logic application. However, spiritual person is not looking for any judgment. It's the only difference, and the spiritual person's application, logical application, is also inward, where science is just subjected to outward. Spirituality has many facets because not only it deals with physical aspects of life but also existential aspects too. See, when I say physical aspects, physicality is just one thing we know, but just we discuss the mental state, physical study and mental study, and there is also the prana, the breathe, the inhale and exhale process, which is which is helping us to be alive. It is the energy study, energy system, right? Like, so, and also there is an emotion. I mean, just you can actually influence a person with your emotion. You can trigger him, you can make him happy, you can trigger him into, some kind of animal. It you know your emotion is also an aspect, a perspective. So, but mostly, you know so scientifically, there is modern, when I say scientifically, in terms of modern science, there is no in-depth study that has been made beyond physical aspects, and rest of the study, like, on the energy, or in the emotions, or in the mind, human mind, it has its limitations because of its approach. I'm not saying science couldn't deal it, but right now, because of its limitations in its approach, it may never ever learn to their fullest capabilities. Not because science cannot do, but the quorum, the science quorum, who has certain baseline how to perform a scientific study, unless that framework changes, uh, it will never happen. Just like how science advocates logic for its existence, which from here onwards let's call it as outward logic. Spirituality too advocates a logic which is called inward logic. Spiritual person either believes, not disbelieves, that which is not from his first-hand experience. Let us say we learn something from some gathered information or by watching a video or reading an article. Spiritual person will never have an opinion, especially an opinion with a kind of an emotion, especially the negative emotion by hatred or disliking or angst. These kind of opinions spiritual person will never make, and to that matter for that matter he will never make an opinion, be it good or bad, because it's not coming from his experience. Why it is important? It is important because to this day, especially, the problem is coming from the identification to the opinion the person is making from the gathered information, especially the people who subscribes themselves as a scientific people. I mean, when I say scientific people, science-based people, I'm not talking about scientists, the people who are the flag bearers of the science. These people uses the science to discriminate others' opinions or others' expressions. At max, we can question what's the point of discrimination. I mean, you can put all your questions if you are really really open in as many as perspectives you can. You can put all your questions and let the person whoever expressing something give the answers. But unfortunately, people uses science to and to discriminate others. And the biggest joke here is these people are not really scientific people. They just want to win their argument using their science. They're just using science as an insurance to win their argument. They win the argument, or make others to believe the opinion they are holding on something. So this is an unfortunate reality. But when you are having a first-hand experience, you know, you know, and personally, I advocate everyone to try to have a first-hand experience. But you may question that not everything we can have a first-hand experience. Yeah, but if that is the case, why to have an opinion? I mean, from the gathered information, maybe it could be a collective gathering. As I said, like even the scientific study starts from assumption. I mean, no one are alive if they are if if in if you are looking at it into the archaeological study, no one are alive today, right? Whatever that happened in the past, it's just few scientific people using certain process or certain baseline. They're capturing the information by observations and trying to make certain kind of narrative, creating a certain kind of narrative of what may happen in the past. That doesn't mean that it really happened that way. It's just one way of trying to learn or understand what happened in the past. Using that, if you are making an opinion, and on top of that, using that to discriminate other person's beliefs or understanding of that past, if that is not stupidity, nothing could be. So spiritual person beliefs are not disbeliefs, that which is not from his first hand experience. So one aspect of addressing this is questioning everything that he comes in touch with in his experience. This is also referred as self-inquiry or Gnana Yoga. He never settles with any opinion or conclusion on any aspect. His primary focus is on questioning the self and its existence, because he honestly knows in his experience it's him versus rest of the cosmos. Rather trying to question what he is not, his focus is always to know what is the source of his existence. See, when we are questioning something which, let's say, let me put it this way, if I am questioning something which is not me, isn't it wise I question myself first? What is this source of this existence before I approach to something which is not in my experience, which I cannot experience it. So the spiritual people, the yogis, their foremost op- you know priority is to question the self, because ev- anything, even the judgment, even the observation, even the paying attentive abilities, everything is coming from within, right? So something is supporting this all factors, all kind of expressions. What is that? What is the source of that? If we question that, and if we know that, what is that outside, we are trying to question, will be much more easy way to understand, or uh, study. I mean, it's much more easy to understand. The sub object we are trying to we wanted to question out for. So the whole process is like, first you know who you are. What is the source? Because the unrealized person, the realized person, both are doing same thing, but the unrealized person is not at his not knowing his completeness, yet he wants to question something else. It's like being hypocrite. It can be, in terms, it can be also called can be called in certain aspects of hypocrisy. It's a kind of hypocrisy, because he doesn't even know what he is, but he wants to question something else. But the realized person, once he realizes who the source of his nature, he will know. And if you want to know, first you approach, you focus on your inner source. Yeah, people want to get the answer from others, but trust me, every individual has his own expression, his own unique experience. That's what this existence gave us, the beauty for every individual to have their own experience. So it happens in every individual in a unique way. It's never one just one mediocre way for everything, one abstracted way, for there is no such thing. When it comes to self-realization, it's unique for every single person. So if you really want to know, it's your willingness that will help you to know. So but is that only the way one should question? Yeah, if you really want to question and study about something, yeah, better you can create a knowledge out of it. But what's the point of making a concretized opinion, from your assumptions, especially? So yeah, you can still create a eons of libraries on the subject you are studying. Still you can be open on the subject without any conclusion. So that is the true scientific way. He never settles with any opinion or conclusion or any aspect. His primary focus is on questioning the self and its existence, because he honestly knows in this experience It's him versus the rest of the cosmos. Rather trying to question what he is not, it's his focus is always to know what is the source of his existence. In the process, he has utmost reverence with the devotion to everything that is enriching his life's experience. So when he is questioning something, the spiritual person, even within or outward, when because he doesn't have a kind of opinions, right? Like, certain kind of, he doesn't never make any conclusion. He's never settled with conclusions, right? At the same time, he's having utmost devotion to everything that is enriching his life's experience, be it a glass of water, be it a blade of grass, be it, uh, be, be it anything, anything that is in that is being part of his life's experience. He will be having this utmost devotion to it. That is that is how a spiritual, authentic spiritual person look at anything. However, for social interactions, he agrees with others to cut the conversation. However, within, he is always on fire with the questions and subjective approach. For example, we can all call a water as a water, because for our common conversation convenience, we are referring certain element as water. But that's a word, just a word, right? Beyond that word, we really don't know what it is. But we have a word for it. We know that without drinking a water for some time, we may also die. We have a chemical name for it, chemical compounds for it. We have we can make use of the water. We can make politics of the water. We can make wars of the water. And we try, scientific community tries to find water in the exoplanets. That means that water is something that is making our life enrich. You know, the that means something, it has some life making material. It is something that is, without it the life cannot happen. If not divine, if not that is divine, I don't know what it could be. So in a way, we are trying to box, opinionate the divine in certain way, and becoming stupid by you know saying that there is no divine here. Everything is a divine in our lives. If we can see it, if we can bat an eye for it. It's just that we are blind, and we are saying that we can't see it. We are turning ourselves blind, in fact, and complaining about something that is not there. First, we need to open our eyes, and spiritual person is always opens his eyes. Everything, he opens up himself to the whole existence. So, faith versus belief versus religion. What is faith? What is belief? What is religion? What's the difference? Everything sounds same, right? That's how we are all told. We were all told. That's how we were all confused our whole life on what exactly the spirituality is. So, in spirituality, devotion has a major role. A spiritual person is devoted to everything that is enriching his life's experience. He never limits his devotion to certain entities like temples, mosques, or churches, or anything. A spiritual person is someone who sees the divine in every form, every aspect. I mean, doesn't have any discrimination, as I just mentioned before. On the other hand, faith is an individual connection that one can create for himself, or him or herself, to their devotion. What exactly is a devotion? If you see, devotion, as I said, like emotion is a kind juice, right, for the human life, which means that if you give that juice to some person, if you have your emotion on some person, you build a relationship. If you have an emotion for certain entity, you have a certain kind of connection, right, for that particular thing, be it a place you were born in, be it a piece of land you bought it, be it some work you have done, anything, any material thing. If you have an emotion for it, a karma happens. Karma is created. That means that that particular thing can rule you, have a control over you. It could also be a person, it could also be a dog, it could also be anything, if you have your emotion on something that which is not you, you create a karma, you have a karma. But if you have that emotion on something divine, some entity which you have this kind of, you know devotional connect, if you have your emotion, if you can emote yourself for that divine entity, then you can actually clean up your karma. There karma happens, here karma cleans up. That's why devotion is called a shortest path for the liberation, because using your emotion as a fuel, you can just jet speed yourself in the process of liberation. So faith is an individual connection where a person emotionally connect. So emotionally connect to the divine. That means that's why it's called devotion. When you you are not there in your emotion, you don't have anything in your emotion, but you are still cling to something as a divine. Be it a person, be it anything in this universe. You shouldn't be there. In emotional relationship, you are there. That's why karma happens. In a devotional relationship, you are not there, but still you have a connection to that divine entity. There your karma evaporates. So one can devote to his work or the way he conducts his life in general. It need not to be some Rama, Krishna, Jesus, or someone, some divine entities. It could be the work you are doing. You can devote to yourself to that work. I mean, devotion to the work is just an involvement. Is an involvement, fully involved. Or the way he conducts his life in general. Some people just devote themselves, like the what they in social charity, in helping others. In that way, also you can actually be devoted. Belief is believing something that I really don't know. Either disbelief also fall. Also, the disbeliefs are the same paradigm. So either you believe something or disbelieve something. That means that you are believing something which is not in your experience, and which is not really, which you really don't know. If someone tries to impose his opinion on me, if I take it without my experiential understanding or experiential knowing, it is defined as a belief or disbelief. Belief can be of anything, need not be related to religion or divinity. It can be applicable to any aspect in your life. If something you are believing which you have no first hand experience, or something you are disbelieving which you don't have first hand experience, these things are called belief or disbelief. And yeah, when you are going by these things, it's better not trying to own them, your beliefs. Try to maintain a distance. When you try to make it keep distance to your beliefs and disbeliefs, one can evolve as a kind of generous and humble and person with humility. Religion, on the other hand, encourages to masses to share a common belief. So, for instance, a faith is an individual emotion, and if that particular person who has an emotional connection to some divine entity, if that person goes to someone else, some other person, not him, and try to imposes his faith as if something is the only way, as his way is the only way, and his entity is the only true entity, then religion happens. It is like, you know trying to impose my faith on someone else is what actually religion does. I mean, there are pros and cons to this. It could also, it could, I mean, it can it can help people, find their own way by reading about one's experience, I mean, in the form of scripture, and trying to connect to the same entity the same way the OP, original person, had. And it can give some format. If people really connects to that format, it can also, the same entity could also become this person's faith, other people's faith, and religion can happen. Religion happens in this way, and religious institution have a structure for it to help masses to connect. But the con is, if you are really if you really don't know what it is, and just you are going by belief because someone else has told you, you will never know what is that true divine is, be it Shiva, be it Allah, be it Jesus, or anyone, because here entity is not that matters. It is the life within you are trying to correct, because the same life is expressed in different ways. Because without that life, we are not here, we cannot be alive, right? So it itself is an evidence, experiential evidence, that life is itself a divine, and if one can touch the source of that life, yeah, it could be any expression, because whatever the language, the construct, the sounds we are making, the construct is happening through the mind, it's all coming from the same life, right? Can't it be, the same life can be expressed the way how we want, if we can connect to it. And it could be any person, any personality. It could be Krishna, Rama, Jesus, Allah, anything, anyone. But the problem here is, people are lost in that entities and forgot the process of connection, and in that is why religion became so ugly. The original intention could be totally different. Unfortunately, it took a different shape now, and people are trying to fight for the historical authenticity of these persons. What does it matter for us in this life? At max we all may alive for 100 years, and from 100 years from now, no one of us will be alive, right? And if we fight each other for person or personality that who may or may not, you know, was a real person back in thousands of years back, it is our stupidity. We are, devaluing our life. So, if you are really faithful person, if you are really religious person, your first priority should turn to, spiritual, because faith is a spiritual thing, but a religion is not a spiritual thing. It's a social gossiping about divine. It's just a social gossiping about the divine, and on top of that, making social situations forced by imposing one's, belief on others. A faithful person need not to be a religious person, but for sure he is a spiritual person, because an authentic faithful person is an authentic spiritual person. He never tries to impose his faith on other person, because spiritual person truly knows in his experience it is him versus rest of the cosmos. So in his experience only he knows about himself. So through by knowing about himself, he tries to know, I mean, his knowing happens about every other human beings, but not like studying everyone. So he In his experience, he is the only truth, and he is trying to connect his experience, his self, to the divine. That is called faith. In my experience, you are not there. In your experience, I am not there. If I tries to bring you in the context of my connection to the faith, then it's not working. It will never work. It will never happen because I totally lost it. My only, my only, business, or my only, you know, faith is to connect, make my connection towards my divine. It could be anything, anything for that matter. But never try to impose on others. In spirituality, yoga is classified mainly as four types: karma yoga, gnana yoga, kriya yoga, and bhakti yoga. A spiritual person is a faithful a spiritual person who is faithful is a who relies on faith is called bhakti yogi. But can also be indulged himself in other yoga. He can also be a kriya yogi. He can also be gnana yogi. He can also be karma yogi, and vice versa. So emotion and energy, probably this one slide could bring lot of, you know discussion or kind of a trolling. But anyways, I dare myself to do this. Every individual can connect to divine through two possibilities: either using their own energies or using their emotion. So as I said in previous slides, there is a physical body which we, you know which there is a clear distance, we can feel each other between, in the space. I recognize you through your body, you recognize me through your body, and there is another level of recognition through mental body, a personality, the way my work, you know the way how I express myself, will make my identification in the society, right? Make my identity in the society, right? So there's a physical body, there is a mental body, and the inhale and exhale, the prana, the energy that is happening. And if you are a bit little sensitive, not ego sensitive but life sensitive, you can feel the impulses of within you, you know uh, and that impulses are happening through energy, energy circulation, energy transmission within the system, right? So this is energy body. So when this energy body is at its best, vibrant, I mean, a person can communicate, connect to the divine energy centers. In it it can be, much possibility in energy centers, like, uh, naturally made energy centers or consecrated energy centers. For example, in Azerbaijan there are places, natural energy centers. In India there are Shakti Pitas, which are like Swayambhu energy centers. For example, um, Arunachalam. Uh, Arunachalam is in a fire element based energy center. I mean, I'm talking from my experience, which I've been there. And Tirupati, it's a it's also highly reverberating energy center. When you are there, when, see the science behind visiting these energy centers. They are also called temples, but the science behind this is like, first, if you have to use your energy to connect to divine, first you need to keep aside your mental, cutting, mental uncontrolled mental activity. You need to keep it aside for some time, and then you be in that presence. That way you can connect. But if you are lost yourself in a mental activity, although you being there in these energy centers or temple premises, you will never be able to connect. And unfortunately, today's devotion is totally became a transaction. So energy is one way you can connect to divine, and as I mentioned, as I explained in the previous slides, how you can use your emotion in your to connect to the divine, which is called devotion. And in the devotion, you are not there. You just relate. You just submit yourself to the divine entity you are having that reference for. If when you are in the temples or energy centers, or you could do from anywhere. Even the energy connection can happen from anywhere, but that all subjected to how much you are reverberating within yourself energetically. So as we know, we have a physical body and mental body. There is also an energy body. By accessing energy body, touching your energy body, of course it's an inward touch. uh, Spiritual person can delve him or herself into the different dimensions where one can make a divine connection. Yogic methods can play a role to help. Yeah, even it can happen this way also. If you are energetically reverberating and become life sensitive, your emotion can also you know much evolves. And your emotion can spill out as a devotion, as a love, and love is the greatest devotion emotion can anyone experience. Trust me, it is from my experience. And if you are really in love, if you really become love, tears can happen just like that. you know uh, Using one's own emotion as a devotion, one can also make connection to divine. This is what religious institutions try to cultivate in masses. However, it's the emotion that is the fuel, but not the entity. When religious institutions are, you know, making up this as a process, unfortunately, the whole agenda is to try to is becoming like trying to sell the entity, the divine divinity, the divine whatever they are trying to, uh, want to sell through their institutions. But unfortunately, no religious institution is trying to help people focus on their emotional abilities. If there is a process, if one can build a process of how to become emotionally connect, then that could happen. And here and there are people that does in the masses, like public prayers, public unfortunately, when the modern day Christianity somehow making use of this, the unfortunately people are falling, I mean, using this as a kind of is kind of uh, uh, a way to capture masses for the conversions, people, because our daily suffering can be manipulated for people to f- can be manipulated for the people to become emotional. And this is how the modern day pastors are fooling people to for the conversions, but by showing divine Jesus is the only way up and so on. But fact is, whether it's a Jesus or a jalebi, it doesn't matter. If you really can emote yourself to anything in this existence, it will work. If you wanted to see, if you wanted to know how this can happen, you can just watch this guy, Joe Dispenza. If you can see his videos, how to stop being a victim of your life, unlock your success, listen to the 7 days. I mean, he has, uh, his own uh, channel as well, and also paid courses, how to channel your emotion to make your life according to the wish you want. the way you want. If you watch his videos, it is, I mean, he beautifully explained how we can make use of our emotion to experience forehand what we want to achieve in future, and send the signals to universe so that it can create the possibilities for us in futures to make it real experience whatever we behaved in forehand. So sorry. So yeah, emotion can be, emotion is the thing, not the entity. Entity could be anything, but the entity can play a major role, because there's a difference, right? How you have an emotional bias, emotional relation to a person, to nothing in your relationships. So you can actually emotionally connect to your mother, you can have an emotional relationship your wife, with your kids, but you cannot have an emotional relationship with nothing. So, but that's the reason why, to make the process easy, religious institutions are in the annals of human history, religious history. Peop, people try to bring some religious figures, personalities, for the masses to connect easily. That is why, uh, yeah, uh, different religions happen in different cultures. Any religion, if you see, if you clearly notice them, they are the consequence of the culture that from that particular geographical locations. That doesn't mean that that is the only way. And when I say culture, culture has many factors influence the geographical location, the things that are available there, and the food that can be grown there, the species, the animals, that can, exist there, that can survive there, all these different things, and the language, uh, and the social conscience, all this will influence uh, a religion. Unfortunately, people bringing a religion from certain part of planet and trying to influence as that is the only way. No, it's not the only way. And especially pagan and heathen cultures truly understood how to become an inclusive, how to live an inclusive life along with the other forms in the same planet, that they are sharing their existence, the same existence. But when monolithic religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they came and trying to enforce everything as according to their own understanding, their own way. That 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 the religion took ugly shape. Even before matriarchy patriarchy happened. Patriarchy is a kind of male dominated society, male dominated religion. There was a matriarchal, religions, matriarchal societies was there in human history, uh, and all those were like almost heathen or pagan based, feminine based. But once the man took over, the domination, then it all ended up in a one god, and a god without a wife. Yeah. So, but I don't want to try to be discriminate here. But the point here is like, if you can emote to anything, that's a divine. You can make it your divine, and you can devote it to it. But the fuel here is like the main thing is here, like, it is your emotion. If you can't emote, then there is no possibility of divinity in your life. So if one knows how to emote, he or she can access to the creator in absolutely anything that is part of this existence. E equal to mc to the power of n. Just like Einstein's equation E equal to mc square, there's a spiritual equation which I derived myself for this. I mean, you can drop it here. It doesn't need to. You don't need to take it too serious. But this is how I try to explain it. See, E equal to either energy or an emotion that one needs to connect to the divine, where M is a person, a man, a person, a woman, anyone. M refers to that. And if this and C is the connection, a submission or a connection when you are using devotion and you wanted to devotionally connect to a divine, then mm, it is a connect, it is submission. Or if when you want to energetically make a connection to the divine, then it's a connection. So C is a connection, and N is the X factor of willingness of an individual. So if this is not there, it is all subjective to each individual. There is no one can generalize this one's one's way of willingness to on others. It's all subjective, and it always has to come from within, person's willingness, individual willingness. Unless an individual is willing, one cannot have access to the creator, but will lost him or herself in the creation, the whole creation. And the fun factor is you can never find a divine in the when your focus is only on material aspect. The whole science, the whole modern science, it is based on material study. In that approach, it will never happen to know how a divinity works, a divine connection. I mean, you can never, it's a possibility to know the source of the creation or divinity. However, to some extent, in the terms of frequency, which is a metric for energy, a quantum science, quantum field of education, trying to push the science in this aspect. But yeah, there are also people who try to refute this kind of approach. But yeah, nowadays, if you see the string theory, which all ended up in a kind of energy frequencies, it is pushing us. But science need to be more open, especially on its baseline, how it needs to look into the things. But this is what it is. But forget about crowd. I mean, one person, one is yourself, but two is a crowd, right? Like only about yourself. You can only experience about yourself. So for you, it is your willingness, and you don't need to impose your faith or your divine connection or your divinity or your your religion on anyone. It is not even to your wife or your family or your kids. It is yours, only yours. That's it. If you try to involve, I mean, if other person wants to become inclusive to you without your imposition, if someone influences themselves and want to be part of you, want to include you, then of course you can have a common faith and you can have a common practice. But it will never work if you try to impose it, or if you try to convert someone else, or if you try to make you know mm, uh, kind of a social gossiping. You can this social, I mean this especially the conversions, without knowing what it is, without even knowing what is the home religion, they wanted to uh, go to uh, something else and try to understand it, and it will never happen. They can never be there nor here, and they will never touch this, devotion. It's an unfortunate situation in the current society. Yeah, this is the biggest thing I wanted to discuss. Atheism mostly attributed to disbelief or divine or God. Of course, most of the atheists they also themselves say that yeah they don't, you know, they say that they really don't know. They don't know, they don't know it. They still don't know it. They don't have a proper evidence, so they don't have any opinion. But unfortunately, the atheist bias is mostly inclined towards a disbelief of divine. Although atheism has its roots even before inception of modern science, however, modern atheists try to use science as a reason or a kind of insurance for their identity, just to kind of winning an argument in the group, with other person. Atheists use science as a kind of insurance, but unfortunately, or fortunately, science or atheism and science has no any connection. It just recently they started trying to use science as a kind of a reason, just to make sound more intellectual. While spiritual person admits as I don't know about something as that he don't know, don't have first-hand experience, atheist relies on gathered information and beliefs, especially beliefs. Why I said like belief, especially here is like uh, what is that not in his experience is still a belief, right? According to our previous slides. So atheist gathers this information from outside. I mean, or collective beliefs, collective opinions. I mean, uh, and according to science, and then try to express their disbelief. But either belief or disbelief, neither is experiential. The foundation of atheist is coming from his strong opinion of disliking or his interest to certain experience or disinterest, you can say, to certain experiences, or by influence of other atheist celebrities take in this position. However, using science as a base is just a reason or just an inference. Fundamentally, atheist is a person whose mind is not awakened yet, and self is totally under control of his mind and the sensory data, and his the atheist mind is totally encapsulated in sensory pleasures of the mind, and he assumes that this is everything. And I mean, unfortunately, there are people who call themselves as science atheists, and but are never open to, even if the facts are presented. So an atheist may accidentally awaken and turn spiritual. However, it is hard not to be influenced by this to take the spiritual path unless he is open to subjective perspectives within. Yeah, I was an atheist in my past, but then I transformed myself into spiritual because of thanks to my guru Sadguru Jaggi Vasudev. But the factor here is like I was open to you know different perspectives which I was not aware. I mean, even though my openness is like unconscious, unaware, but still I was open within. It was subconsciously I was open. That attracted myself towards Jaggi Vasudev, Sadguru Jaggi Vasudev videos and his ways of methods and expression. But if that openness was not there within me, you know, I will not be the same person as I was. I was so depressed. I was so suicidal. Uh, I had suicidal thoughts going on all the time, but because of my career and life that was going at those days. But once I got to know, yeah, his invasion just enriched my life's experience. And the key factor was here is like though I was totally depressed, but still there was some openness within me, and that openness was always keep on improving. But unfortunately, there are people who call themselves as atheists or just closer. I mean, this closeness will also articulate or manifest itself as a kind of physical diseases, mental diseases. But unfortunately, they will never try to see it. That's the whole problem here. If you are closed and you are mentally, that will actually transform itself as a physical illness manifestation. Yeah, yoga has its roots in ancient Indian culture and scriptures. There is no specific data since when it's been part of the culture. It helps human being in holistic way and brings him closer to the existence. Yoga, the word yoga is a kind of is called union. I mean, you become inclusive to the existence. You become part of. You become the union. In his you. There is only you in this. There is no you and something else. You becoming one. So uh, it, it's all yourself, including everything that is not you. That is rest of you. So rest you including yourself to rest of you with your inclusiveness is called yoga. Uh, I, I mean, it could actually a method. It does have methods, but it can also be your daily way of life. Yoga is not just a few minutes workout in the morning. There are different schools of yoga that are available. However, in general, it is classified as Gnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Kriya Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Yeah, in the Gnana Yoga, you have subsections called Raja Yoga and different yogas. But mostly, and there the four categories. These are the four categories. In human experience, we know that we have body and mind. Unless these two as tools, using these two as tools, working for the liberation from suffering that one goes through is the core essence of yoga. See, since we are born, our mind is sensory driven, right? Sensory data driven, right? And uh, which is the reason why, and these senses are outward driven, and as we open our windows outward, and we are letting the air in and enjoying the pleasure of the sense that that the dopamine that is getting from outside through this blossom. We we will be lost in ourselves, like that's the only way. But there is also a way, as I explained in it in previous slides, the whole experience that mind is going through on the kind of a mirror of self. It's a kind of a mirror self. Maybe mind is a mirror, could be called as a mirror, but totally distracted mirror. But self is also a kind of a mirror, or kind of a framework, or a kind of a layer, you can say, where mind is playing its game. But unfortunately, mind doesn't know it's like, for example, the TV screen is the self, but the different channels, different characters, those are all kind of a mental illusion that's happening on the TV. But when TV really knows that it is TV, the screen is it's I mean that is the thing, and rest everything is just a that can play whatever that it can play. Then there is a distance. Unless yoga can help us to to realize that distance, to experience that distance. So in human experience, we know that we have a body and mind using these two tools working for the liberation. And when we distance from ourselves from this mind, liberation is a kind of possibility. Uh, Isha Yoga, under the guidance of Sadhguru, offering methods for one to make of their daily life, to make part of their daily life, which not only helps in reviving health but also enables a practitioner to improve his focus and intellectual abilities. See, yoga, just like how food works only when we eat, yoga works only when we make it a part of our life. I mean, most of the people assumes that yoga is just a half an hour activity. No, you can continuously be part of in yoga. The way how you conduct yourself can be yoga. uh, and spirituality as well, like people think that spirituality is like morning 1 hour yoga. No, you can be spiritual addressing anything in your life, everything, every moment in your life. And in fact, that is the shortest way to achieve it. Sadhguru's inner engineering is pristine process derived from Kriya Yoga for modern man to enhance the quality of his life's experience. There are forms of yoga, other forms of yoga as well, available in Isha arsenal for one to make benefit out of them. However, inner engineering is a complete course by itself. If one want to make most out of yoga, but it all depends. But it all demands self-discipline. If one want to make most out of the yoga, it all demands the self-discipline and determination how they want to imbibe it in their daily life. So yeah, there are. I mean, the yogic methods. You don't need to put your mind, because yoga doesn't give much priority to the mind. It will always emphasizes that essence of that self, inner self, the true nature of our source. So it will try to bring out that. So you don't need to think too much about how to make yoga your part of your life. You just subscribe yourself to particular course and can then make imbibe yours in your daily life. Make it a couple of times, because inner engineering takes only 21 minutes in a day. It could be, you can do it morning, in the afternoon. You can make it like a continuous, and if not at least one time in your life. And down the line, from 6 to 8 months, once you make it everyday practice, you yourself will see the difference, how exactly you transform. I mean, there are a lot of testimonials out there. Just because Sadhguru said that water has a memory, I mean, there are people who try to ridicule Sadhguru. There is a thing from Frozen movie which talks about water has a memory. You know, uh, these things, they don't target it, but when people like Sadhguru say water has a memory, the memory here could be in a different aspect rather than what we know as a memory, right? Because he's talking from his inner experiences. It need not to be memory of saving something or storing something within, but memory in a different way. Maybe capturing the imprint. Need not to be a detailed information, but imprint of the whole existence. So for what it how it's been happening since its inception, some certain kind of memory it could be there. And uh, if the water can be a source of our life, a source of our existence here, of course, if one knows how to touch the life process within, can't he influence the way how the water behave? So for us to make a judgment out of it from what we know, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. And if someone makes such an argument, especially the people like renowned people like Sadhguru, there could be some base to it. And probably science, the way how it doesn't know to till date how a mercury can be solidified, probably science don't know to till date how to create a mm, how to use a water to store a memory. I'm here saying, after all this you know defense for what Sadhguru's statement, still yet I am saying that you don't need to believe everything what he said to make a course that is offered by Sadhguru in his Isha programs as a part of your life, you don't need to judge for his statement on water has a memory, especially when you really don't know from what perspective and what from what experiences he expressed that. And there is also one more thing Sadhguru, regular video this some people try to troll, which is about you know getting getting an hemorrhage for a people who sleep towards keeping their face north, who sleep towards not keeping their face head, and this is also we really don't know on what aspects what he said, but you don't need to believe it. Why are you trying to picky about only these simple stupid things which you think so as a stupid, and yet you're trying to make priority out of it, you know so uh, yeah. And unfortunately there are people who just like to you know surf themselves in the same mud pit, uh, and assuming that itself as an ocean. And even though there are gurus and self-realized beings offering different things for human beings uh, to make best out of their life, still these people, although they love to suffer with all kind of illnesses, with all kind of mental illnesses like depression and all, yet they don't want to see the different perspective, see in a different perspective, and at least try to experiment for themselves if that could bring any kind of transformation in their lives. Such a kind of pathetic society, so pathetic peoples, pathetic mindsets we have in a society, in every societies. Unfortunately, these people are becoming the source of all the hatred that's going on in the society, and these people call themselves as like intellectuals. Unfortunately, if you ask me, these people are like educated fools, educated morons, educated bigots. Of course, bigot is a word used for only religious context, but I call them as like educated and scientific bigots, because these bigots, they are never a scientific, they're neither a scientists nor know anything about science, other than just using it for as an insurance to just do online ranting, online and express their opinions as a general facts. And especially unfortunate situation is these people are the source of the whole hatred that is happening in any society. I mean, like being woke and like being trying to act as a secular, trying to and unfortunately secular society is far from what we are right now, because that is not how national politics are happening. Since the independence in India or any country, even in America for that matter, people the politics talk something else and the reality is something else, and try to if someone tries to, if these people try to act as a you know bridge between this in this gap. But unfortunately these people are making much it worse by giving all kind of opinions and all kind of, and especially uh, trolling with all kind of nonsense. There is no any problem with any religion in this planet. The only problem with this is with the human mind, especially the human mind that is identified with its ego, with all kind of stupid identities without seeing the big picture. I mean, to put it simple, if we want to solve a problem, if we can't see the problem, the person who created that problem, on what situation and what circumstance the problem has been created on, or from what footsteps the problem is coming from, if we can't see that, uh, we can never solve the problem. And if we are only in a kind of if we only trying to be discriminative, or of on the person from which the problem is coming. Let us assume for a minute that some person is creating a problem, and if we can't work with him and trying to help him, trying to transform, help him to transform, at least if we can't give it a try, which I think, which I believe with all my heart, that is what the spiritual beings, people around the world, not just from India, not just from Bharat, around the world, who are trying to help others to try to see the higher picture, big picture of the real essence of self. Unless we don't do that, unless if that is not happening in a higher level, in a larger scale, no problem can be solved. And yoga is the only way one can actually know not only the other person but also the whole existence in much better way, uh, and to its fullest possibility. And unfortunately, these people, whoever I just mentioned, the educated idiots, educated morons, uh, they don't want to even see the, they don't, no, not only they don't want to give it a try, but also allow to ridicule or discriminate the persons who, the people who are offering these kind of sciences, yogic sciences. So in summary, isn't it enough we fight each other with all our puny opinions on everything around us? Intellect is only a tool that must be used to solve problems, but never a means to judge other human being. Inclusiveness is the only way for future, which is a hope for every one of us. And people calling, many people calling themselves as a humanists, as atheists, as rationalists, as a skeptics, are unfortunately becoming the source of the whole problem. If you are really humanist, if you are really, agnostic, if you are really spiritual, I don't know. I mean, if not inclusiveness, what else you could? I'm still allowed to help these people who are the way that they behaves. Yet these people just want to roll themselves in the same mud pit. They don't want to, and unfortunately, they not only they react in arrogance, but also attack with all kind of both a verbal, and also with pictures, all kind of I mean expressing the stupidity. But it's the inclusiveness is the only way. No, nothing else can solve the problems for ourselves and for the planet and for the entire existence. Let's become loving human beings, using spirituality as a means by turning inward. Humanism must start from an individual level, looking within what we are and transforming ourselves, rather pointing fingers at others with blame. Om Namah Shivaya. Allaye Namah Shivaya. Sri Vishnu Rupaya Namah Shivaya. Isa, Isa, the Jesus is the divine. I'm not secular. I'm a devoted person. I don't know what is secularism is, because in the disguise of secularism, people are forgetting the true essence of devotion. And my devotion is for everything in this existence. And I see the divine in everything. Not only the people I like, but also people who are not allowing me to like them. Because in everyone, the same Shiva is there, the same Allah is there, the same the God is there, the same, the intelligence is the same in everyone. Unfortunately, these stupids, educated bigots, scientific bigots, educated morons, educated stupids, idiots, educated idiots, these people are not letting their divine flow from within them, not letting the sweetness of the devotion coming out of from coming from within them, with all their kind of puny opinions, puny conclusions, puny intellectual, discrimination on everything. Hope, let's hope and wish these people will also transform for themselves and make the whole world a spiritual possibility and a conscious planet. It is my Guru's wish, which should also be everyone's wish. Namaskar. An Isha volunteer in the society. I am Sai Krishna.